Hello and good morning. Welcome to today's webinar entitled, What is Your Financial Picture? Thank you for spending a few minutes with us today as we discuss the importance of establishing a financial plan for your financial picture. I'm Joe James, one of the founders of Coker James, currently serving as CEO and Managing Principal. Joining me today are Donna Briggs, CFO and a principal at Coker James, and Scott Wallach, a financial planning consultant with our strategic wealth management and financial planning partner, Advantex Planning Partners. We've partnered with Advantex to bring comprehensive, holistic financial planning to our clients. For you, that means our professional team can help you develop a clear picture of your financial situation, establish and prioritize financial goals, and timeframes for achieving those goals. Implement planning strategies and monitor your plan and make adjustments as your goals, timeframes, or circumstances change. We focus on what matters most to you and then build a financial plan that incorporates tax strategies, estate plans, business succession planning, risk management, and retirement planning. Together, our team can model and plan for changing environments, future uncertainties, and pivotal life-changing events to help you reach your long-term financial goals. Today, we'll be focusing on how well do you know your current financial picture? Why is financial planning important? Common mistakes, assumptions of clients regarding financial planning, and what do we at Coker James and Advantex do to help clients with their financial plans? Donna and Scott?
Thank you, Joe. Wow. Why do we need a financial plan as individuals? This is such an important concept. Having a financial plan helps you balance competing priorities and focus on goals and have action plans to meet those goals in the future. And on the contrary, not having a plan, it has you just running on emotions and making decisions on the fly and hoping that things work out. You know, we hear about clients who have not had a plan and they just hope. They hope everything's going to be okay in the long run, or they worry that things are not going to work out the way they planned. Well, you haven't planned. That's the key here. It's just all about starting somewhere and having a plan in place. Scott, why don't you share with us a couple of examples about how clients have focused in one area and made decisions and jeopardized their planning?
Absolutely, and thanks, Donna, for that segue there. And I see clients over the years, and that's what we'll talk about today. It's just things that people haven't done or what they say afterward, and they say, "Why? I wish I would have done this." But a quick example is this is a few years back. A client, we sat down with them, and I asked about what kind of planning had they done. And they said, "Well, we talked to our insurance agent, but they didn't necessarily sit down with their CPA or a state attorney or other advisors as well too." And the first thing that jumped off the page was, "Why aren't you guys putting money in your retirement plan? Why aren't we funding for retirement?" And the client's answer was, "I'm putting all this money into these whole life insurance policies that we were going to use for this strategy." Well, the client was already really having that buyer's remorse and not sure about this was the right plan. Fast forward the whole situation, we were able to kind of come up with that hybrid approach that the client can meet those goals and do different things. And that's what planning is really about, is trying to put all these detailed parts together. Then I always use an example of dump the puzzle pieces out on the table and then put them all together to make the picture. That's how I always describe a plan to somebody. And in a moment, we'll talk about some different things here too, because financial planning is different for everybody. There is not a one size fits all. So clients ask that question a lot. You know, what if I am trying to figure out if I should sell my business in the next 5 years, or I want to fund this goal for retirement, or I want to leave so much money to my kids, or just all these different things, and people just get lost in the shuffle when we look at those things. So what we're getting at is, when we look at a financial planning process and people say, "Why do I really need one?" You got to build a foundation. You got to build a foundation to make decisions. And Donna, you said something about emotions just a moment ago, and I get those phone calls a lot when people are emotional about the stock market's doing this, or this happened to my personal situation. My company has the sales are down this quarter. We're really worried about cash flow, all those things. But when we have that built and we have that picture that Joe talked about, we can see our financial picture in a visual format. In the old days, I did this in Excel, and it was all numbers all over the place. And we lost people a lot. They just got totally more confused when they sat down with us. So when we walk people through our process, we use visual formats to do that. And that's what we do together here at Coker James and Avantax. And when I show people that, it's a great situation to help them understand, here's where I am, here's where I'm going. Hey, this little bit of a left turn or right turn that happened here, it didn't throw me off that bad. It's going to be okay. And when we can get people through that, we can really understand, okay, this is a weakness or a situation that popped up right now. Let's make sure it doesn't become a long-term weakness. Let's make sure we can squash it while we're on it right now. So we call that our GPS planning process here. Just like you get your phone out and put the directions in and tells you where to go. That's what we're doing with the financial picture as well here too. So at the end of the day, what clients run into a lot of times is they just leave so many inefficiencies on the table there. And what I'll talk about there and have you go into, Don, is just talk about when you see the process of what we do for clients, how much time they leave tax numbers on the table in terms of whether they're paying too much tax, and we identify situations that way. But the process itself, Don, I'll come back to you and let you discuss that there and talk about how we handle that.
Oh my goodness, that process is just so fascinating to me. Even as a financial person, having done it to my own situation is just so valuable. Seeing a visual on that and seeing everything in one place, I think is something people just don't naturally stop and do. They don't look at their income and expenses. They don't look at all their assets and the true value of them. They don't really recognize their liabilities and the risk and exposure they have out there on the other hand. A lot of times they're not using insurance properly, and to protect them from risk, they're maybe patching that in different ways of things they've heard people talk about over the years. And then, and to add another layer on that, they're not being tax efficient. They're not being income tax efficient, or maybe they've not looked at estate taxes at all. And, as we want to build wealth, the end of that equation is exactly how much of that wealth accumulation do you actually get to keep? And this is part of the whole package that you can't do little pieces of. It's just amazing when you see it all come together. Technology today, we can do things we could never do before. So I love that process, Scott. It is just wonderful. It lets you set priorities and really determine what the goals are and what the solutions are for you at your stage, and then tweak them periodically and keep it going. I love that. And I know, Scott, that you see so many living examples that clients have been maybe sold an incorrect solution to something, and just because they're not really planning holistically.
Correct, Donna. Yeah, every time we start to, like I said earlier, dropping that puzzle pieces on the table, putting them together, once we have that picture, it's very easy to see, does this work for a client or does it not work for a client? And it's easily identifiable. And we see that all the time where a client says, hey, I did this strategy or bought this XYZ product. Does this make sense for me? Sometimes we have to have those hard conversations, but that's okay because we have time to fix those, right? And not let too much time go by. So it's, again, with that visual process, it's just very easy to see everything. Like, I agree 100% with what you said. Software has made this so much easier to get to a quicker point, to teach a client, to educate them, to get to that point of making those decisions. And collectively, it's easy to do that together when you're working with a team, like we talked about here. The best thing I can say is that the planning process never ends. I think that's another misconception people run into is, oh, this feels great. I'm good. I'm okay. I'm all done. Guess what? Life changes. World events happen. Things happen all the time. Client calls up and says, guess what happened? We got to pivot on the fly here. Well, if we have a foundation built like this in the technology we're talking about today, it is very easy to jump on a call with a client, change things on the fly, look at that and say, okay, here's where we're going now. And then get you to feel that, hey, we're heading in the right direction. That's the ultimate goal here of what we're doing. Versus the old days, Don, if you remember, we'd ask for, we need statements, we need reports, we need paper, all that stuff. And then 2 weeks later, we can finally get back to the actual answer. So now we're talking about instantaneous type things where if we have data flowing in and we have the right plan built, it's much easier to do that. So that's how we change clients' lives and work well together there.
Well, I want to just throw up the one barrier that we hear a lot, and the one thing that I think is really dangerous, that do it myself mentality. Can I do it myself? Can I just do this? I mean, I'm a smart person. I'm a business owner. Maybe I should just one day I'm going to get around to doing this myself. What do you think about that?
It's tough. I mean, unless you're really I kind of call it what the jack of all trades, right, Donna? You got to have that tool belt. And you got to know how to do everything. I equate it to like, when I'm trying to fix stuff around the house. I don't know how to do all the plumbing, electrical work, and all the other stuff. I can try. I can watch those YouTube videos and all that kind of stuff, but I can tell you it doesn't always end well, right? So at the end of the day, you want to say, are you really good at? Can you? And that's okay. A lot of clients come to me all the time and say, hey, I did something in Excel, or I found a retirement calculator. I said, that's kind of let's compare and contrast here. And I'll run it through our planning process. And I tell you, the majority of the responses are, okay, you're getting a lot more detailed. You're focusing in on the things that I really didn't I missed some of those things when I tried to do it myself. So unless you have the time, the energy, the expertise, and the willingness to learn through all that, work with the professionals. That's what we do every day. And we also try to teach it in a fashion that a client can understand it too, Donna. So we don't want to be going over their heads there as well too. The other thing I'll say too, real quick to your question, and I'm going to go a little further, is just a risk of not having a plan. I hear this all the time. After we go through a plan, a client says, why didn't I do this 5 or 10 years ago? Why did I let all that time go by? How many times do we hear that? We hear that all the time. And that's probably the common, oh no, I wish I would have focused in on this more. We understand this stuff isn't the most exciting stuff. Your life is busy. The last thing you want to do is gather up all this information and get it to us. But the clients that do it, I can tell you, get that peace of mind, get that foundation. And it's an awesome experience to be able to guide a client from start to finish. And I've had the pleasure of doing that over my career. And if somebody says, can I sell this business? Am I going to be okay? Can I retire and cut off my paycheck for the rest of my life? Am I going to be okay? Those are powerful questions. And those are just having that detail and that expertise to answer those questions versus just trying to run a quick spreadsheet and say, yeah, let's go for it and hope it works. So I would say that from Don. I think the other piece of just looking at it is, when you run into clients, the kind of situations you hear them say, why don't they have a plan? I know you hear all the reasons and the different, I wouldn't want to say the word excuses, but reasons, let's say, to why they don't have a plan.
Why you don't have a plan? Well, you're busy, right? You're busy, and the wealthier end of the spectrum, you're really busy. If you're managing a business or your own portfolio, talk about busy, and you're busy with life. And these things don't raise up as priorities until something goes wrong. And you're not typically on the planning end of things. You might have changing family dynamics. You might be putting it off for some reason because, you're taking care of an aged parent, or you have relationship problems, or children or grandchildren being born. Well, this life happens and it distracts us. And those things are where your attention needs to be. Really, a team of professionals to hold you accountable is what the great planner does, right? So I think just life happens and people naturally put that process off. To just make that first step to actually do something besides scraping the surface with a little bit of planning here and there. Do the big picture planning. I think clients are afraid there's a big fee, a barrier, or maybe the process is really onerous. And that's really not what we experience, right? We wade in with real basic stuff, Scott, and these meetings are just so easy. We try to make things super simple to get started, and the momentum picks up and we build. So it's not painful, but I think the perception is it would be painful. And I just think there's a lot of misinformation out there. I wish we could encourage everybody to take that first step and start planning. The key here is building this team. When we work together with a planner like you, Scott, and we work on the tax end of things, and we have a great attorney and a great insurance person, and I mean, that kind of team is just, the value is exponential. So I don't know how else to say. Just take the first step and get started. Don't try to ever do it yourself. Big no doing it yourself. So that's something I'm really passionate about. Joe, why don't you talk a little about the firm and how we can help take that next step?
Donna and Scott, as always, thank you for sharing your insights and this valuable information with our attendees. You know, despite the volatility of bear or bull markets, natural disasters, or unforeseen events and circumstances, we focus on what matters most to you, our clients. Perhaps now more than any other is the time to reevaluate not only your short-term financial picture, but more importantly, your long-term financial goals. If you've been thinking about what is most important to you when it comes to your financial picture, we have the team ready at Coker James and Advantex to review, adjust, and build a plan with you. Together, our team can model and plan for changing environments, future uncertainties, and pivotal life changes to help you reach your long-term financial goals. As Donna said, don't underestimate the value of establishing and maintaining your financial plan. Please reach out to us today to discuss your specific strategy. Again, thank you for joining us and have a great day.